Imagine a world where every buzz of your phone sends shivers down your spine, where innocent notifications become harbingers of terror. Meet Scott, a young man whose ordinary Sunday takes a chilling turn when mysterious messages haunt him relentlessly, leading him down a dark path of intrigue and danger. From eerie Bluetooth transmissions to whispered warnings in the dead of night, Scott's journey will keep you on the edge of your seat, questioning reality and fearing the unknown. But as he delves deeper into the sinister secrets of Enterprises, he discovers that some nightmares are all too real. Buckle up for a spine-tingling ride into the heart of darkness, where the truth may be more terrifying than anything he could have imagined. Welcome to Eerie Encounters and Hauntings. We are thrilled to have you join us for 2 new spine-tingling tales of the paranormal each week, stories that will make you shiver with fear and keep you on the edge of your seat. From haunted houses to possessed objects, we have the most bone-chilling tales of the supernatural. Get ready for a terrifying journey into the unknown with our bone-chilling episodes featuring blood-curdling stories that will send shivers down your spine. So hit that like button, share the horror with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. This story will make shiver and fright. This is entitled Mystery of the Haunted Phone. This was shared by Rod, who's from Peru. Let's get started. Scott arrived early at their designated meeting place that afternoon, where he was scheduled to meet his girlfriend Vanessa. It was Sunday, so they were planning to attend church together. He knew Vanessa well. She usually took a while to get ready, so he was sure she wouldn't arrive for a while. Scott decided to go to an internet cafe nearby while he waited. He checked his messages and email, browsed Facebook, and looked at pictures of Vanessa on her blog. Later, he visited the NBA website to check when the next San Antonio Spurs game would be. The young man was engrossed in surfing the internet. After a while, he felt his cell phone vibrate, which was always on silent mode. Scott thought to himself that it might be Vanessa texting him. However, it wasn't Vanessa who texted him. Someone was sending him a Bluetooth message. He ignored the sender. Since he was inside the internet cafe, it wasn't impossible for someone to be attempting to send Bluetooth messages to those inside. Besides, the message might come with a virus. Then, his cell phone vibrated again. This time, it was Vanessa, informing him that she was already at their meeting place. They went to church, and during Mass, Scott couldn't concentrate because his cell phone kept vibrating. He couldn't respond to it because it wasn't appropriate to check messages during Mass. But the vibrating continued. Vanessa noticed Scott's agitation and asked if everything was okay. Scott just nodded. After Mass, Vanessa observed Scott quickly leaving the church, so she followed him. As they exited, Scott immediately took out his phone. To his surprise, there were no missed calls or messages on his phone. He couldn't understand why this was happening because he couldn't be mistaken. His phone kept vibrating incessantly from the start of the Mass until it ended. There were no missed calls. There were no notifications. Vanessa was already wondering about Scott's odd behavior. "You've been bothered for a while now. Is there a problem?" Vanessa asked. Scott said his phone had been vibrating during Mass. He didn't answer because they were still inside the church, seated near the front. Besides, it would be unethical to use his phone during Mass. Vanessa asked again who was calling Scott. Scott replied that nobody was calling him. Vanessa said, "Are you sure? Maybe it's another girl, and you're distracted?" Scott responded, "Come on, Vanessa, I'm already feeling flustered. Now you're suspecting me of cheating." They had dinner at a restaurant and watched bands playing at nearby bars. They often went on dates on Sundays since they were both going to be busy with work the next day. Scott's phone vibrated again. He checked it but found no texts, Bluetooth messages, or missed calls. Scott was troubled. He knew something was wrong. Vanessa wouldn't believe what was happening because when she held his phone, it didn't ring or vibrate. Scott arrived home around 11 in the evening. After fixing his room and getting ready to sleep, his cell phone rang. Scott felt chills down his spine because he couldn't understand it. His phone was always on silent mode, and he was sure it was still on silent earlier. How could the ringtone work? Despite the air conditioner being on, Scott was sweating. He felt differently about his phone. He couldn't explain the fear or apprehension he felt just because of a phone. He cautiously checked why it rang. There was another Bluetooth message. How could there be Bluetooth while he was upstairs? His parents' and siblings' cell phones didn't have Bluetooth connectivity. He carefully examined the message's sender. The code name was John. Scott felt chills as he accepted the picture message. It was a blurred image of a man. He immediately turned off the Bluetooth. But then he received another message, another picture message. This time, it was a clear picture of a man with a mustache. After deleting the messages, the lights suddenly went out. Scott couldn't believe it when a voice spoke in the darkness. "Help me. I was killed because of my cell phone. I'm John. I work for F Enterprises." Scott screamed, "Have mercy on me. I'm innocent. I just swapped my old phone with this when I went to the mall. I didn't know. Have mercy." Scott heard the voice again. "Take the cell phone to my brother. He also works for F Enterprises. You won't find peace if you don't follow me." Scott suddenly woke up. He was sweating profusely. He thought it was real. It was a terrible nightmare. Why would he be haunted? He didn't even know whose phone it was. He turned on the light. He was still trembling when his cell phone vibrated on the headboard. He pondered. It was the middle of the night, but someone was still texting. Maybe it was Vanessa. Scott couldn't believe it because someone was Bluetoothing him again. His heart pounded harder when he read the sender's code name. It said John. Scott sat up in bed, his heart racing as he stared at the glowing screen of his cell phone. "John," he whispered, the name sending shivers down his spine. He couldn't shake the feeling of dread that washed over him like a cold wave. Was this some kind of cruel prank, or was there something more sinister at play? With trembling hands, Scott opened the message. This time, there was no image, just a simple text: "Find my brother at F Enterprises. He will guide you." His mind raced with questions. Who was John? And why was he reaching out to him? Despite the late hour, Scott's curiosity and fear gnawed at him, urging him to uncover the truth behind these mysterious messages. Determined to unravel the mystery, Scott quickly got dressed and slipped out of his house, careful not to wake his sleeping family. The streets were eerily quiet as he made his way to F Enterprises, the company mentioned in John's haunting message. The building loomed before him, its windows dark and foreboding in the moonlight. Scott hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the door handle. What was he hoping to find inside? And was he prepared for the answers that awaited him? Summoning his courage, Scott pushed open the door and stepped into the dimly lit lobby. The air was heavy with a sense of unease as he approached the reception desk, where a tired-looking security guard sat slumped in his chair. "Can I help you?" the guard asked, his voice muffled by a yawn. Scott cleared his throat, trying to ignore the pounding of his heart. "I'm looking for someone," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "John's brother. He sent me a message." The guard raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "John's brother, huh? You sure you got the right place?" Scott nodded, his palms growing clammy with nerves. "Please, I need to find him. It's important." The guard sighed and motioned for Scott to follow him. Together, they made their way through the labyrinthine corridors of the building, the silence broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing off the walls. Finally, they arrived at a nondescript door at the end of a long hallway. The guard hesitated for a moment before unlocking it and gesturing for Scott to enter. Inside, Scott found himself in a dimly lit room filled with rows of computer monitors and blinking lights. At the center of the room sat a man hunched over a keyboard, his face illuminated by the glow of the screens. "John? Are you John's brother?" Scott whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of machinery. The man turned slowly, his eyes wide with surprise. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice tinged with suspicion. Scott took a step back, suddenly unsure of himself. I'm sorry. I must have the wrong person. I'll go." But before he could leave, the man stood up, his expression softening. "Wait," he said, his voice trembling. "How did you find me? And why are you here?" Scott hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. "I received a message from someone claiming to be your brother," he explained. He said he was killed because of his cell phone." The man's eyes widened in shock, and he sank back into his chair, his hands trembling. "It can't be," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "That's impossible." Scott took a tentative step forward, his curiosity getting the better of him. "What happened?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The man hesitated, his gaze flickering to the screens around him. "It was supposed to be a simple job," he said, his voice hollow. "But something went wrong. Terribly wrong." As the man began to speak, Scott felt a chill run down his spine. The story he unfolded was like something out of a nightmare, a tale of greed, betrayal, and unspeakable horrors lurking in the shadows. As John's brother's words echoed through the room, Scott felt a sense of unease settle over him like a suffocating blanket. He had stumbled into something far darker and more sinister than he could have ever imagined, and he knew that he was in way over his head. But despite the fear gnawing at his insides, Scott knew that he couldn't turn back now. He had to uncover the truth behind John's death, no matter the cost. And as he listened to John's story, he realized that the nightmare was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. As John's tale unfolded, Scott's mind whirled with disbelief and horror. The story seemed too surreal to be true, yet there was a rawness to John's brother's words that sent a chill down his spine. According to the man, F Enterprises was not just a run-of-the-mill corporation. It was a front for a clandestine operation, one that delved into the darkest corners of the human psyche. John had been part of a team tasked with developing a new form of mind control technology, one that could influence thoughts and manipulate behavior with terrifying precision. But as the project progressed, John began to question the morality of their work. He saw firsthand the devastating effects of their experiments, the lives shattered and minds twisted beyond recognition. And when he voiced his concerns to his superiors, he quickly became a liability, a loose end that needed to be tied. John's death had been made to look like an accident, a tragic consequence of a routine malfunction. But Scott knew better now. John had been silenced, his voice snuffed out in the pursuit of power and control. As John's brother finished his story, a heavy silence settled over the room. Scott felt a sense of dread creeping over him, like a cold hand closing around his heart. He knew that he was treading on dangerous ground, that his very presence here put him in grave danger. But despite the fear that threatened to overwhelm him, Scott knew that he couldn't turn his back on John's memory. He had to uncover the truth behind F Enterprises, no matter the cost. With newfound determination, Scott vowed to continue John's mission, to expose the dark secrets that lurked within the shadows of F Enterprises. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, that he would be risking everything he held dear. But he also knew that he couldn't live with himself if he didn't try. As he left the building, the weight of his decision hung heavy on his shoulders. He knew that he was walking into the unknown, that danger lurked around every corner. But he also knew that he couldn't let fear dictate his actions, that he had to stand up for what was right, no matter the consequences. And as he disappeared into the night, a single thought echoed through his mind. The truth was out there, waiting to be uncovered. And Scott was determined to find it, no matter what it took. If this video left you spellbound, dive deeper into the world of chilling tales by joining our channel, Eerie Encounters and Hauntings. Access a treasure trove of bone-chilling stories waiting for you with new episodes 2 times a week. Spread the fear among your friends and family who crave a good scare and give them goosebumps. We'd love to hear your spine-tingling experiences as well, so don't hesitate to share them in the comments. You can also send us your story so we can feature it in one of our future episodes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay scared. Disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. The stories depicted in this video are shared by people who believe they are true, but they have not been verified. Any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. The views and opinions expressed in this video are those of the people who shared the stories and do not necessarily reflect the views of YouTube, Google, or Facebook. The channel does not endorse the views expressed in this video. This video is not intended to be used as evidence of any supernatural or paranormal activity. If you are experiencing paranormal activity, please contact a qualified professional.